Well, hello and welcome to another Faith, Philosophy and Life with me, Mr. Shelton, and do hope that you are doing well. Bit of a darker one, this one, I'm afraid, today, guys. This is a story. Well, it's not even a story. This is real life for Christians. And come home one day and they find this daubed on the side of their door. This is very much true in Iraq and Afghanistan about a decade ago. This sign is the Arabic for the letter N, N being the first letter of Nazareth. Jesus was known as Jesus the Nazarene, and so to have this on your doorframe signifies that you have been marked as a Christian. Now, in the UK that's not so much of an issue, but in some countries where it is illegal to be a Christian, it means that your card is marked. You are in serious trouble. And this kind of gives three options for Christians, certainly did 10 years ago in the countries that I spoke about. It means that you need to run away, take your stuff with you, escape overnight, or you will be killed if you don't. That's option 2. Option 3 is stay, and we'll lock you inside your house and burn it down and kill you. Or the final option is convert, change your faith to militant Islam, and we will be watching you. And I say militant Islam because this is nowhere near what Islam generally teaches. So this is really difficult because this is all a sign of persecution. This is all a sign of Christians being picked on, as with many other faiths that they are, but I'm focusing on Christian persecution today. So with that as a thought, which is hard at the best of times, here's our cheesy intro sequence. So our title today is How is the Church Persecuted? How is the Church Persecuted? Please make sure you get that written down. And as always, do make sure that you underline your titles and make sure you send things through to your teachers as well, because we're a nosy bunch and we do want to see what you've done. So today we're going to explain how Christians are persecuted in the world today. It's going to be good if you can explain what persecution is. It's going to be great if you can understand how Christians are persecuted, and even better if you can explain why Christians are persecuted using examples. So we've thought about the Nazarene already. We're going to think about bags, what's persecution, and then we're going to look at some case studies. So this is my first question for you. This is a shocking image we see quite often on the news now if you keep your eyes open. If you had to flee your home with only one bag, what would you take with you and why? And how do you think it would feel? Okay, so if you had to flee your home with only one bag, what would you take with you and why? And how would it feel? So just pause me now while you have a think of that. Maybe make a list of maybe 5 or 6 items that you would take with you. But beware, if you're going to say you're going to take your mobile phone, how are you going to charge that? So just think about that as well. So pause me now while you come up with that list. Okay, so that's basically the life of some Christians who are persecuted today, and I'm looking at the extreme end, but it does mean that you've got plenty you can answer with in your exam. I'd like you to construct a 4-part mind map. You can see one at the top of the screen there, where you've got in the middle of it Christian persecution, and you've got examples of persecution, what happens, why does persecution happen, and where does it happen. If you'd rather, there is one of these in the linked description below that you can access. What I'm going to do is going to play a clip to you, and it's going to go through some information that goes through Christian persecution, and then you can write around your mind map with information answering those questions as well. So I'm going to play that now. I'd like you to watch that, and then you're going to come back to me and we'll carry on with our next bit of information.
Which is the most persecuted religious group in the world today? The answer, in terms of sheer numbers and sheer horror, might surprise you. It's Christians, specifically Christians living in Muslim-majority countries, countries where Christians often preceded Muslims by centuries. I'm not talking about war on Christmas type harassment. I'm talking about know your place or we're going to kill you persecution. Astonishingly, the Western mainstream media barely acknowledge what is happening. Let's look closer at this issue. It tells us a lot about the world we're living in. 100 years ago, 20% of North Africa and the Middle East, the birthplace of Christianity, was Christian. Today, Christians make up 4% of the population. Much of that decline has occurred in the last decade. In essence, Muslims are rendering North Africa and the Middle East free of Christians. Take Egypt, for example, my ancestral homeland. In just the past 2 years, tens of thousands of Christian Copts have left Egypt. And many others want to leave, but they simply cannot afford to. Why they want to leave is no mystery. On New Year's Day, 2011, the Two Saints Church in Alexandria was bombed, leaving 23 Copts dead and 97 injured. In recent years, dozens of Coptic churches have been attacked, many burned to the ground. In August 2013 alone, the Muslim Brotherhood and its supporters attacked and destroyed some 80 churches. Unfortunately, Egypt is more the rule than the exception. Hundreds of Nigerian churches have been destroyed in recent years, with especially deadly attacks reserved for Christmas and Easter church services, leaving dozens dead or mutilated. Churches have been bombed or burned in Iraq, Syria, and just about every place in the Middle East where churches still exist, except Israel. Christian businesses have been torched, Christian girls have been kidnapped, sold as child brides or slaves, and had acid thrown in their faces for not being veiled. Anyone born a Muslim who converts to Christianity faces jail and possibly execution. The list of fresh atrocities by Muslims against Christians grows longer almost every day. Even in Muslim countries often portrayed as moderate, Morocco, Indonesia, Malaysia, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Christian minorities are under legal pressure not to build churches or evangelize. The Christians in these Muslim countries are often identical to their co-citizens in race, ethnicity, national identity, culture, and language. There is no political dispute between the Christians and Muslims, no land dispute. Vastly outnumbered and politically marginalized, these Christians simply wish to worship in peace. Instead, they are hounded and attacked. So then, why is this happening? And why is the media making so little mention of it? The first question is easy to answer. Christians are being persecuted in Muslim countries because they're Christians, or as the Quran puts it, infidels. That is, non-Muslims who are regarded by many fundamentalist Muslims as inferior. As a fundamentalist interpretation of the holy books of Islam has grown in the last 50 or so years, Christians have suffered, and in recent years they have suffered terribly.
Millions of Christians worldwide are persecuted because of their faith. Every year, Open Doors publishes the World Watch List to focus the world's attention on those 50 countries in which Christians face the greatest persecution. Here are the top 5 countries on the list, the most dangerous places in the world to be a Christian. Number 5. Syria. Christians are caught in the violence of the ongoing civil war and also specifically targeted by Islamic extremists for attack, abduction and murder. Yet the Church is still actively helping both Christians and Muslims. Number 4. Afghanistan. There is no visible church in Afghanistan. All Afghan believers are secret converts from Islam. Those accused of converting to Christianity face hostility, arrest and even death. Foreign aid workers who are Christian have been killed. Number 3. Eritrea. The government of Eritrea sees Christians as agents of the West. Pastors, church leaders and church members are imprisoned without trial. Thousands are kept in horrific conditions, some in metal shipping containers in scorching temperatures. Others are forced to work long hours doing manual labour. Many die as a result of their imprisonment. Number 2. Iraq. Islamic State has taken over major parts of the country, causing many Christians to flee for their lives. But militants also attack and destroy Christian communities elsewhere. There's been a church in Iraq for nearly 2,000 years. Now it's on the verge of extinction, with tens of thousands of Iraqi Christians either having left the country or being forced to live in refugee camps. Number 1. North Korea. For the 14th consecutive year, North Korea is number 1 on the World Watch List. The government considers Christians to be enemies of the state. Christians have to worship in secret. Possessing a Bible will put your whole family in danger. Thousands of Christians are imprisoned in horrific labour camps. But even so, North Koreans still choose to follow Christ, and the underground church is growing. Open Doors supports persecuted Christians in over 60 countries around the world. In these places, the church may be persecuted, it may be suppressed, attacked, or lied about. But it has not been, and it will never be, destroyed.
Okay, so got another clip for you here, and there's sort of two questions here for you to be considering while this is on. You may want to make some notes of this while you are watching these, or you might just want to reflect on these. What are some of the main points of history from Open Doors, and what are their purpose? So what is the point of Open Doors as an organisation? And what dangers do you think Bible smugglers may face? What dangers do you think Bible smugglers may face? So two pretty big questions there. You do need to be a little bit aware about Open Doors. You probably won't be asked directly about it, but having an example that this is a source of authority you could use, always useful to have. So let's watch this now and make of it what you will.
Awake, strength what remains. Strength what remains, that is at the point of death, God told me in July 55, Revelation 3 verse 2. If a member of that body is suffering, the whole body suffers with it. That's what we call my smuggler's prayer when I say, Lord Jesus, when you were on earth, you've made so many blind eyes to see. Now it's the same job for you to make seeing eyes blind, but you've got to do it now. And if he doesn't, then I've had it. I cannot outsmart the custom guards. They took 4 hours to search. 2 fellows in the front of my vehicle, 2 in the rear, 2 underneath, and 2 standing there to watch the expression on my face to see if I was getting nervous.
All the time they couldn't find the Bible?
No, I've never lost one Bible in 20 years that I've done. I've never lost one Bible. We've only just begun.
So we said a good outcome would be if you could describe what persecution is, and hopefully now you've got quite a few examples of that. Great if you can understand how Christians are persecuted around the world, and again you should be able to back that up with some evidence and use some examples. So the next thing I want to do is I want to look at this bloke. Now, he is Canon Andrew White. Okay, now he was known as, or is known should I say, as the Vicar of Baghdad, even though he's not in Baghdad anymore. This is quite an old clip, so some of it is a little bit dated, but it does give you an idea about what his life was like as a vicar in the capital city of Iraq during the occupation of the Allied forces as they tried to bring stability to that country. So I say a little bit out of date, but Canon Andrew White. Andrew White is a name, Canon is his title. It's like Reverend, but a slightly different version of Reverend. Let's just watch this and make a few notes as we go, because it may be useful for our next and final task.
I'm talking today to Canon Andrew White, who is known as the Vicar of Baghdad. Tell us about what is happening with the church, especially with the persecution that the church is experiencing, and how the church worldwide should respond.
Well, the fact is that we are under serious persecution. We've had 227 people killed this year. We are under attack. Our people are kidnapped. They are tortured. Our people are fleeing. Huge numbers have fled. But we're really happy. Despite all this, it is the happiest and largest church I've ever had.
You have over 4,000 people?
Over 4,000 people.
And what does it take to keep a ministry like that going, especially considering that you minister to their physical as well as their spiritual needs?
Well, that's very important. We can't talk about reconciliation or peacemaking without actually providing for the needs of people. And what was obvious was that there were four main needs. Firstly, people needed food. Secondly, they needed health care. Thirdly, they needed education. And fourthly, they needed somewhere to live. And so we try and work with all those areas. We give food to everybody every week, a whole bag of groceries. After church, they go and get their groceries for the week. Healthcare, we have an incredible clinic which has 3 dentists, 4 doctors, a laboratory, a pharmacy. All treatment is totally free, and they're provided with all medicines free as well. Most of our patients aren't even Christians. Most of them are Muslims, and we serve everybody who's in need of help. We're in the process of building a huge school on our compound, and it should be finished by September. It's mostly built, so we will have education available to all. And finally, housing is a big need, and the only way we can deal with housing is help people to pay their rents and therefore help them to stay. And one of the children wrote in a book I wrote on children, Some of the Children, she wrote that through the help that we have been given, we have seen that Jesus does not forget us and is always with us. And she says, I call on everybody to follow the road of Jesus and come to know him as we do.
What kind of budget does it take to run a massive operation like this in a place like Baghdad?
Well, I used to have the cheapest church in the world to run at $600 a year. Now I need $177,000 every month. And so it's hugely expensive to pay for all our staff, the food, the medicine, the doctor's salaries, the educational costs, and then we also have to pay some towards security, though that is predominantly provided by the Iraqi government nowadays.
How many security do you have? And describe the security before the services.
Well, I have approximately 30 army officers around me most of the time. They're all Iraqi army. Most of them are Christian. And before everybody comes into church, they are searched, both men and women. We have a side room where the women are checked and all the men are checked. In addition to that, we have 18 buses every Sunday bringing people to church. And so that's a major operation itself.
Why does some of the persecution that you've suffered, you mentioned the people killed, but hasn't your church also been bombed several times?
Oh, we have been bombed. We've been totally destroyed. It's been a real challenge to us. But the one thing we really hold to is that the suffering of this present world is nothing to be compared with the glory that is to come.
And how can Christians, or how should Christians around the world respond?
Well, we have no endowments, we have nothing. We totally rely on the gifts of God through his people. And we need people to both pray for us and give to us.
Okay, so this is then our final task. You're going to write an article about Christian persecution. You need to explain what life's like for Christians, how Christians are persecuted, how other Christians try to reduce the impact of persecution, and write down one or two Christians and what they specifically try to do. Now, you can do it as an article, you can do it as an interview with questions and answered, or you can do an article referencing the things that you've watched already. Now, I have put loads of examples in the description below. You'll find a directory called Stories. If you go in that, there are quite a few there, and I know some of them are quite long-winded, I get that, but those are all actual examples taken from the Barnabas Fund, who are an organisation like Open Doors. So when you read those over, think these are real people, these are real situations which I've pulled off the internet for you, so you can be looking at that. When you've done that, that will give you your case studies, and then you'll have plenty you can be answering. I'm going to leave that for the day. You've covered a lot, but you've got a big task there to do, so make sure you keep that on screen. Thanks very much for your time. Take care, stay safe, wash hands, God bless you, and I'll be seeing you soon.